So I just want to acknowledge I've enjoyed in the last 40. My name's Brian Mitchell. I'm the president of Open Source Matters. But like everybody in this call, I'm just enjoying hanging out, catching some great sessions from lots of speakers, literally from all over the world. Mick and I just met 48 hours ago on a Skype call, just comparing notes for his presentation. But I've enjoyed getting to know Mick and look forward to hear what he has to say. He's here representing the support on Stack Exchange. Mick is a volunteer, and from his Stack Exchange profile, he declares that he's very fond of Stack Overflow and the Stack Exchange network, that he's happy to be volunteering, crushing duplicate questions, asking others to add explanations. But he doesn't like to play fastest game in the West, which if you frequent Stack Exchange, you'll appreciate that sometimes it's better to get more thoughtful answers than the fastest answers. So it's nice to know that Mick has that bias. He's coming to us from Brisbane, Australia. So for anybody that's in a part of the world that is functioning at a normal time of day, Mick might be speaking a little quieter. He's got some family members that are still asleep because it is what time in the morning, Mick?
Just 5.
5 a.m. So God bless you for being here. We do have the chat open for the session. And as part of our prep, Mick shared with me he's very comfortable having folks type comments, and he's going to focus on his presentation, but if you want to add comments, and if I think Mick appreciates the interruption, if there's a nice little gap, I'll just add that verbally so he can respond to you in real time. There's also a Q&A. Please, if you have questions that you want addressed, enter those throughout the presentation. What I'm finding is sometimes people are saving their questions for the very end, and it takes half the Q&A time for people to type up their questions. So if you've got a question, feel free to add it at any point. And other than that, you may also have an opportunity to jump on stage. So if you're interested and want to contribute something, feel free to share audio, video, and then I'll leave that to Mick's discretion. He'll get a little pop-up that indicates that you want to join. He's given me that just a minute.
Oh, well, I'm just wondering now, where do we want people to have their focus, on the chat or on the Q&A? Because I didn't notice that there were 2 tabs for that.
Yeah, so if it's helpful, I can manage that. What happens is if there's something in a tab that you're not in, there'll be a tiny little red dot. I wish it were much bigger and more obnoxious. But if somebody posts a question while you're in chat, you'll see a red dot pop up next to the Q&A. Those questions are moderated. I'll be quick, as you know, I can imagine everyone's just going to ask good questions. So if you ask a question, I'll make sure it's posted right away. And then same thing with chat.
I'm sorry.
Either one is, I would leave the chat open. And then if something pops in Q&A, I'll let you know.
All right, let's get this puppy started.
Yeah, let's do it. All right. So with that, I'm going to step off stage, and I'll let you know if you need anything, just holler. I'm hanging out in the background.
All right. Let me start. Oops. Right, so I have some goals for the session today. Oh, I wish I could see the rest of the... I can't see anyone. All right, there we go. Can everybody see that? Yeah, okay. So I've got some goals with the session today. I want to help everybody to have a better time researching in general. Everyone's going to have support questions. I want everyone to be having an easier time being more effective and being more efficient when it's time to look for answers. I also want you to be more confident in sharing your knowledge with other people, whether it's you're needing support from someone else. I want you to be confident about how you seek that out. And if you're one of the smart people in the Joomla world that can provide support, I want you to be able to do that in a way that you're confident with. And finally, I want to change the way that most Joomlas are using, interacting with the World Wide Web, so that the overall community of Joomla is propped up. So at the moment, we're not all really helping each other. Sometimes we're only helping ourselves, but we'll get to that bit. So why listen to me? I've got some good reasons. So I am not formally educated. I never went to university or anything for computer science, don't have a degree. I am fully self-taught, and if I'm being very honest, I am Stack Exchange taught. There's been a lot of times where I went on my own personal journey, teaching myself something, or if I get interested in a topic, I would go down that rabbit hole. But for the most part, predominantly, the knowledge that I have now as a professional developer, a PHP developer, has come from Stack Overflow. Only more recently did I get involved with Joomla Stack Exchange and some other communities that are attached to Stack Overflow in the Stack Exchange network. But I've worked from the bottom up. I'm not coming in as an elite mind in the computer science realm. So I can really relate to people that are just getting started. And I've been doing this thousands of hours. I have been dedicating a lot of time. So I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've watched Stack Overflow go from being an extremely rude place, which is like Hell's Kitchen with Gordon Ramsay and shouting and making people feel awful, right through to the current days where it's really, you get banned if you're deemed as being rude. People flag you. The moderators say you can't do that. If you don't listen, you're out. That sort of thing. So it's really snapped into a good place. But I've seen both sides of it, and I've seen Stack Overflow grow a lot over the years. I'm one of only two moderators on Joomla Stack Exchange. So the two of us, the other man's from Greece, and we look after all of the content and all the users on JSE. And I've also been a moderator on a offsite, like on a different forum, for just about a decade. So I know what it looks like to have an old traditional forum style site to look after and to manage. Some of my stats at the bottom there to show the length of my service and how much I've provided in those communities. But before we get into exchanging knowledge, there are also one-way resources that everybody should be getting in touch with. I mean, whether it's the documentation or whether it's watching tutorial videos, or if you have a podcast that you like, you should definitely be regularly getting involved in that stuff. Mainlining that sort of stuff is going to push you through to places in your career that you wouldn't have otherwise reached. But after that, you're going to have questions. You're going to have things that you don't understand about the video, or the documentation wasn't clear enough, if you've ever heard that about Joomla documentation. And then the world opens up quite a lot. Is where are you going for that information? And here's a short list that I compiled, and some of them, I wouldn't know the first thing how you would use Instagram to seek support, but people are getting very adventurous about where they're getting support. Most commonly, I find that they're just going to the platform that they use frequently or that they're comfortable with, but that's not always the right one. I mean, what happens when you ask for support on Facebook? Well, if you go to the Facebook group for Joomla, you ask a question, maybe somebody knows the answer, maybe they don't, but it just gets pushed down the page as time passes, and it's really temporal. So best case scenario for you is that you ask your one question, you get one person that can go, oh, here's the answer, and you get your answer, but then that's a one-to-one relationship, and it doesn't really help Joomla as a whole because it vanishes. It's not searchable. No one else is going to be able to find that. It's just going to get pushed down. So the same thing is for streaming services. Like if you want to have a casual conversation about some sort of support question you have, that's fine. But if it's actually valuable, it gets lost on Slack. On Reddit, Reddit isn't bad, but it's still a forum. At least it's stored in somewhat of an archive that's searchable, but it's just not the right user interface because there's a whole lot of scrolling. You have to keep going, searching around, trying to hunt for which one is actually going to resolve the question. It was one of the early trailblazers for creating what is now Stack Overflow, but I don't recommend Reddit for support. Instagram, of course, no way. Jug groups are great, but then it's all of the knowledge is sort of insular. You only get that knowledge within your tiny community, and it doesn't really permeate into the world. So Joomla suffers for that. Joomla form, um, I accept that this is the behemoth and it is part of the Joomla org um, ecosphere. So uh, definitely that should be in your top three. LinkedIn group is just like Facebook. It's going to go away. No one's going to see it. It's not archived. It's not categorized. It's not searchable. Um, I'll be definitely endorsing Joomla Stack Exchange Facebook group. Um, definitely not. It fades away. Stack Overflow, yes. Twitter, no. Gitter, that is for if you have GitHub related questions, use Gitter. Otherwise, get out of there. That's not Gitter out of there. And Glip, again, there's a lot of people that are using it, especially people I think that are involved with core, and I know Patrick uses it, but it's just not the right interface for reaching the whole of the community. So that's what separates the good from the bad. So now we're left with three, and I'll be talking about these three uh, as we go. Okay, so why should you use the Joomla form? Well, it's got a very healthy pool of SMEs, and these are subject matter experts. When you go there, you can be very, very confident that the people that are going to give you feedback and support on your Joomla questions, they're going to have an intimate knowledge of Joomla. It's also a revenue raising arm of Joomla with the ads. So by being there, you are helping Joomla not only by exchanging information, but by generating funds for the company. So that is not to be waived as irrelevant. And they have a wide scope of on-topic questions. Now, why do I not endorse? And these are reasons why I don't personally use Joomla Form. The UX is simply, the user experience is simply outdated. It is very old school forum style interface where someone has an introductory question, someone replies, oh, can we see your specs on the diagnostics? And then they go, oh, here's this, and can you also add this? Can you do this? Did you try this? And it just keeps working down the page. And as a researcher, if you want to get to the answer, you've got to go all the way down to the bottom, see if there's a resolution, see if it's good enough. And if it's not there, if there's some chatter after that, and then you've got to bump back up. And there's just too much navigating. It's a very clunky old style. Back in 2005, when it started, very cool, and at its time it was the best. No longer the best. Another problem with Joomla Form is that there's no cross pollination. It doesn't. That's right, and there's no cross pollination between other sort of sister communities from Joomla Form, so it doesn't have any satellite branches. And I'll talk about that when I get to the next slides. Um, it's very linear in its design. So if you ask a question, often everyone's trying to get you to a single resolution, and it more or less stops at a single point. Whereas oftentimes there are more than one way to solve a problem. So it's not great in that way. As Dorothy chimed in on the chat, pages expire over time. So the old ones, you go, oh, I don't really trust that if it's 2012. I mean, that's nearly a decade old. Is there something more current? And then you have to ask the question again. There are a lot of J15 questions. Yeah. Well, that's not necessarily a problem. It just means you're not likely to use any of that content at all. And then you've got another ask a question. It's very time specific. And another thing is that it's not as fun as it could be because they Joomla Form acknowledges contribution based on the number of posts that you make, not actually whether you've got something important to say or not. So it's a really strange metric. Well, it's an inaccurate metric by which to gauge how someone is contributing. So this is why Stack Overflow is so great, but not everybody thinks Stack Overflow is so great. A lot of people have had some unsavory experiences in the past. Um, but I'm here to say that it's come a long way. It's not that way anymore. Yes, sometimes people will harshly respond. Well, not harshly, but they will be a bit cold in their response. They'll go, "No, you didn't do this. You need to read the help pages. Do this." And that's actually fair. There are quality standards. The reason that Stack Overflow and Stack Exchange sites are so good is because they have really high standards for quality, and that lends itself to being the researcher's paradise, which it was designed to be. So why should you use Stack Overflow, even if it is a bit intense? Well, it has insanely fast response times. So you ask a question, there are people like sitting at the keyboard ready to pounce. And if they have the question, they'll give it to you like that. It has a wealth of non-Joomla SMEs. So if you're having any questions with just generalized CSS or JavaScript or jQuery, SQL, any sort of querying, if you've got rerouting and redirect problems, if you're getting just general parsing errors, getting any of those things, that can be quite a good place to go if you don't need to have feedback from someone who is a Joomla SME. Um, and so, and there are people coming in and out of Stack Exchange sites all the time. There are over 175 sites that are related to Stack Overflow, and you only have to have one login to get to any of those. Um, so once you get into the network, you become part of a super conglomerate of communities where this is not, I mean, Joomla Forum, it has its own specific rules, whereas, and it's only one place, whereas the Stack Exchange network is a collection of communities, all of which generally have the same rules, but they all have the same interface. So once you learn how to use one, you can learn how to use all of them in a snap. And the diversity about those communities is pretty immense. Um, if you are into Lego, they've got a community for that. If you are into neuroscience, they've got a community for that. My boy is a professional dog trainer. There is a pets community if you want to talk about pets. So once you get in, it's really easy to go off on some other community and interact with a high level of success. And and frankly, the best reason to use Stack Overflow and the Stack Exchange network is because it has an unparalleled. This is the industry-leading user experience, and it has been developed and researched, developed for researchers, and is evolving all the time. They're all the time realizing, hey, this isn't quite the best that it can be yet, and so they tweak it. They have a whole crew of people behind the development of the machine. They listen to the community. They take requests for new features. People within the community fight amongst themselves about which ones would be good and which ones would be bad, and it's very enthusiastic. But this is what drives it forward. You cannot say that about any other forums in the world. They are just not being developed at the same speed. Why shouldn't you use Stack Overflow for Joomla questions? Well, they're generally not well received. I keep an eye on Joomla tagged questions in Stack Overflow daily, if not every couple of days, to see what's happening. A lot of the time, the Joomla-related questions are poorly asked. They're not quite up to the standards that Stack Overflow expects, and as a result, sometimes they get downvoted, but more times than not, they just get ignored. There's not a lot of people that are patrolling those specific tags. Generally, when I'm using Stack Overflow, I'm using it as a PHP developer. So there are hundreds of people that are regularly monitoring PHP tagged questions, but a very small demographic of people that are checking the Joomla tagged questions. So it's more times than not you let down. Every once in a while you'll get a good response, but not great. And there's a disproportionate amount of Joomla SMEs. I mean, there are some people that are on Joomla Stack Exchange that come over to Stack Overflow, maybe because they're bored or because they're looking for more to answer, but really there's not that much. So more times than not, if you ask a Joomla-based question, you'll get an answer from someone who doesn't know Joomla that might work, that might do the job, but it might also miss the trick of how do you write a Joomla query using the dedicated query building methods, or they won't know some of the helper functions, or they won't understand how like pros and cons or things you shouldn't do, like in terms of security or things. So you can't always trust what you get there. I couldn't find a Joomla Stack Exchange meme, so just chucked another one in there. So finally, the third and my preferred one is Joomla Stack Exchange. This has all of the benefits of the user experience that Stack Overflow has, except it's got more people with intimate knowledge about Joomla itself as a CMS. So these are people that are using it. They've got the CMS installed, probably multiple instances. They're managing multiple websites. They can read your question about RS forms, and they go, oh, I can actually recreate that same question in my environment because I've got it already installed. Whereas on Stack Overflow, most of the time people won't have that there. And so you don't have to be as specific when you ask. You can just say, oh no, I'm using Plot-a-Lot, or I'm using one of the other million extensions, and it'll resonate straight away. Joomla Stack Exchange also has a lenient set of rules about what you can ask there. So if you said, oh look, I've got requirements for an extension, I need to have a plugin that does A, B, and C. If you ask that on Stack Overflow and said, can someone help me? Can someone recommend an extension that does A, B, and C? They'll say, bang, no, you can't have it. We don't do software recommendations here. That's against the rules. It gets closed, and no one responds. Whereas on Joomla Stack Exchange, it has opened up. It has a greater allowance for what you can talk about. It has its own rules. It still has some of the expectations of Stack Overflow, so that the post quality stays high, but generally you'll have an easier time, and fewer of your questions will be closed as off topic. Generally speaking, also, it is a much more welcoming place where people care about giving you the answers because they know they're like you. They know they're in the Joomla community. They're working with Joomla every day, so they're feeling your pain. They've been there, and they want to help because it might be them on the next time it comes around. Why shouldn't you use Joomla Stack Exchange? Well, it is the littlest brother of the three that I've described. Joomla Forum, it has a massive user base, and Stack Overflow has a massive user base as well, whereas Joomla Stack Exchange is very tiny relative to them, and it just doesn't create enough activity. So unfortunately, we have, if you want to click the link and go off, I'll still keep talking. There the poll results, yes, correct. I don't think I'll bother to break out, but the poll results, go ahead, Brett, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in. I just were right at sort of the market share implications.
Yeah.
And this is a poll that you having posted yesterday. I think people can see that now. Let me see.
There you go. Yeah, this is the problem. I can't read it, but I know what's there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, this is, I have some skepticism about the structure of the form because it didn't say you can only click one. And when I started clicking, I expected to click multiple. So there might be some form fail here for some people, but this resonates. This pretty well describes what I would have expected to see, is that you'll see a lot of people on Joomla Forum, you'll see a lot of people on Stack Overflow, and not as many people on Joomla Stack Exchange. Was it Glip? Glip is popular.
Yeah, and I do have the image here. So the Joomla Forum would have been listed first at 29%. Stack Overflow came in just under 14%. And then Stack Exchange is at 9.2, and that's actually tied with the user group meetups. So Meetup and Stack Exchange are coming in at about 9%. We have Slack at 10%, and then Glip at 7%. And after that, we kind of get down to pretty marginal contributions. YouTube, which you mentioned earlier, Mick, is at 6.2% as well. So, and of course, this is a survey of people that have signed up and paid money to come to a Joomla conference. I don't know if that skews the data results too, but you did mention it's pretty reflective of your expectations.
Yeah, and yeah, it's good you brought that back up. It reminds me that YouTube, which isn't really a two-way support channel, but it could be. You can hack it to make. I mean, you can ask a comment underneath it, underneath a tutorial, but that is not an effective means to exchange information. So if you ask a question and someone answers it, good for you, but chances are that's going to be lost in the hundreds of comments that are under a video. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend that one.
Good. I'll turn the stage back over to you. I just thought We had the poll results, and it seemed timely.
Yeah, thank you. And to my slide, there it goes. The truth is, I desperately need more subject matter experts on Joomla Stack Exchange. We have some, and the ones that we have are awesome. They have bailed me out in my times of need. Someone, Shaki, has been my personal savior, and I'm pretty sure I owe that person a beer. But what we have is good, but it's not enough. And it's not as if you have to be dedicating hours of your day at the end of your workday to come and chime in. I mean, this is something, if you don't have time, you can come once a week, check to see if there's anything that you know anything about, and let us know. And that will all bolster the whole thing. Everything gets better when everybody gives a little bit of what they've got. Before you ask a question, I need to manage your expectations. I need to help you to understand how this is going to go and how to prepare yourself for asking a good question. First and foremost, you need to remind yourself that this is not a place where you dump a question, fold your arms, and wait for someone to do your free work for you. I mean, this is your job. This is your business, and you're now flopping it over to some. So this is a lot of people. This is the caricature, the cartoon there is describes too well what some people are expecting. They go, right, I've asked a clear question. Why isn't it? Or I'm looking for a very simple thing. Why am I not getting what I need? So patience. You need to make sure that you own your question. This is your baby, and you need to grow it until it gets you where you need to go. First, isolate and narrow your issue down as much as you can. You need to do all of your diagnostics, do all the debugging. If you don't have those skills to run diagnostics and to debug, go to the documentation, search around the internet. And this isn't just searching on Stack Overflow or Joomla Stack Exchange and Joomla4. Search the whole internet. If you need to go to OS training and or some other tutorial that'll explain to you how to do these things, do that first. You do all of those things first. I like to tell people, before you ask your question, put yourself in a situation where you're about to ask a technical question to someone who you admire, who you respect. Imagine it's your boss or your lead developer, or it's your superior at work. They have their own 9 to 5 job. They have their own deadlines. They've got stuff to do. You know that they're smarter than you. You know that they have the information that you need. What you don't want to do is be the person that taps them on the shoulder every 5 minutes and interrupts their work, going, oh, can you just give me a complete A to Z tutorial on how to make a plugin? Can you give me all of that, please? Well, if you did that to me, I go, well, did you do anything? Did you research this? How far did you get on your own? You need to exhaustively research. Don't ask your question until you are all the way across it. I mean, if you're experiencing something new for the first time, it's entirely possible that you are going to run into vernacular that you've never heard before. If you don't know, I mean, the first time I saw UCM, I didn't know what it was. It was a unified content model. I didn't know what that was until I went to the Joomla documentation to read what are they talking about. And this is the like fields values table. And every time you make an interaction with that, or generally when you query it, you're going to have to write a pivot query. Well, if you don't know what a pivot query is, how is someone, if someone says, oh, just use a pivot query, and then you go, I don't know what that is. Well, you need to inform yourself as much as you can before you ask that question. So when it's time to tap, when you've exhausted everything else and you are absolutely stuck, narrow it down, make it super clear. Prove that you've researched it. Say, oh, I've looked at this link in the documentation. I saw this link at the RS forums Q&A. I looked at this and this and this, and then show what you've tried. See how close you can show people how close you've been. See, I can collect the query, but I can't get the result set into a PHP. This is what I've got. It's not quite working. Can somebody help? That is going to be a good question. I can guarantee you that you will receive at least one upvote if you ask a question that's that comprehensive and that clear on Joomla Stack Exchange. I can guarantee it because it'll be me who upvotes it. That is exactly the question that we want. We want it super clear. We want it timeless. We don't want something where we go, oh, this is the URL to my website. Go and have a look. Well, that's no good, because after we fix your problem, the page is no longer accurate. We go to your website, and it works, so we can't see the fault anymore. So everything's got to be statically written in the question. And then be prepared to wait. Finally, the expectation is Joomla Stack Exchange isn't the lightning bolt that Stack Overflow is. It might not be as fast as Joomla Form is. I don't know. But when the questions do come, the value is in the quality of the answers. So be patient, wait for it to come. If you don't get a response after a day or 2 days, maybe your question is not clear enough. Usually people will say things like, can you provide this detail or this detail? So listen out for those. You can edit your own question anytime you like, and just keep improving your question until you get the answer. And again, you don't just plop and leave your question and wait for someone to fix it. The expectation should also be that you continue to research, you continue to try to self-solve your problem. If you manage to self-solve your problem before someone else solves your problem, you post your own answer to your own question, and Joomla wins. So not only did you resolve the page properly, you've solved your own problem, you've shared it with the community, and hopefully in a way that's educational and that will help thousands of future developers. Get on. Yeah, so I've covered some of this in the previous slide. You need to respect the volunteers. As I said, they are paid Joomla, potentially experts. So you need to treat everybody like they're an expert. Don't come in there going, oh, I need someone to write this bit of code for me. Well, if you need someone to write code for you, you probably want to hire a developer. You don't have a question, you have a task. And for a task, you should pay a developer because that's their job. Hire a developer to do the development. But if you're going to go on that journey yourself, if you're like, I have a problem and I want to solve it myself, can someone else help me solve this problem? This is what you want to go for. Provide all the details. Don't say g'day, happy Easter. Any help and any suggestions will be helpful. Thanks in advance. All of that greeting and sign off. None of that. No e-signature. None of the fluff. This is a very unfortunate. I mean, it's a sterile place. If you do this, I'm going to edit your post. We don't want thank you. We don't want kind regards, greetings from South Africa. We don't want any of that. So don't bother putting it in the question. This is for researchers. This is a place that gets seeded with questions by the public and answered by the public, but it's for researchers. So everything that we do must be for researchers. There's a lot of people that get it wrong, that don't ask good questions. If you want to have the best chance of success, before you ask your first question, read those top two hyperlinks at the bottom there. Jeff Atwood is one of the co-founders of Stack Overflow. This is his baby, and he's realized this is what you need to do to ask a good question and get good results. The same with John Skeet, is a Stack Overflow super legend. He is the target of memes. There are memes on the internet that say, whenever John Skeet has a parsing error on his computer, in his terminal, it says the terminal apologizes to him for breaking, because he's held in that regard. So these are two people you can absolutely trust to give you great insights. And if you digest what they have to say, you're going to have an easier time. The final one there is that WikiHow link, that also, in very plain, simple terms, gives you a step-by-step good tips. And I think there's even a video at the end of it to give you advice on how to ask. So this is you don't have to read all of this now. I just wanted to get it all out. This is a recent post that I put on Stack Overflow's meta site, where meta is where you talk about Stack Overflow. You ask questions about Stack Overflow. And this is where we debate how things are going wrong, how things are going right, what to do. And the problem at Stack Overflow right now is that it's getting flooded with redundant questions. So people aren't researching before they ask. They're just going, oh, look, I struggled for 2.5 minutes. I'm just going to type what I'm trying to do, and someone will just answer me. Well, it's turning into people are using Stack Overflow as a crutch, where they're not actually going on that journey. They're not owning their question as them being. They just want someone to do their work for them. So these are some tips that I think this is part of a modal that should pop up right before you answer a question, because the truth is Stack Overflow has 21 million questions, million. So the chances are, if you post a new question today, it's going to be a duplicate. Or if it, for any reason, should be closed, we need to close it so that there's not so much noise on the site. This is more of a whinge about the current state of Stack Overflow more than it is anything else. But there are some good tips on here about how to be a good answer out. I have answered, as I said, thousands of questions on in the Stack Exchange network. I love it, and there are times where I have been this guy with the hands in the hair and wondering, what in the world are you trying to do? How am I gonna? I've got to try to analyze what you're saying and then find the most professional answer. And I have spent hours. There have been some questions I've spent days on trying to solve. Why do I do that? Well, it's fun. It's challenging. I used to do Sudoku all the time for the mental challenge. Now I answer Stack Overflow questions, and the buzz comes when someone is super stuck. They're frustrated. You answer their question, and then in the end, you give them the resolution they're looking for, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, thank you, you saved my life." I'm like, "Yes!" You don't always get 200 rep for questions. Often, it's the simpler questions that people understand that they'll bother upvoting for, but there are those golden ones where you answer the question and everybody's happy, and over time more people click upvote that your answer was helpful, and that actually gives you that sense of joy and that pride, like I gave, and I helped more than one person. Even if I'm having a bad day, I'm going, yes, at least I helped somebody on Stack Overflow. Now, while you're answering is another art form. It's an absolute art form, probably just as difficult to master as it is to ask a question. But if you are, you don't have to be an SME. You don't have to be a subject matter expert to answer. Just be honest. Say, I don't know if this is standards compliant. I don't know if this is secure, but this is what I'm doing. This works for me. And if you come at it like that, that's good. The person who receives your advice, they're going to go, okay, I'll take that. I'll take this one with a grain of salt. I'll try it. If it works, then okay. And the good news is, if you post an answer and it actually isn't secure, it's going to be vetted by the community. There are going to be other people in the community that go, oh, geez, they'll leave a comment to you and say, don't do this, and here's why, and here's what you should fix. And I've done that myself. And or if they can lift the coding standard, they go, oh, you've written that in 10 lines of code. It can actually be this single line of code. This is the sweeter way to do it. So not only did we help the original asker, we can also help answerers to lift their game. So it's a really great place to be. When you answer, be specific to the question asked. Generally, it's nice to have a generalized answer that works for many people, because after all, that's the intent. You want to help researchers, but you also should honor the specifics that the original poster presented. Try to maintain that for context. Be generous. If you see something that you can improve upon, you don't have to just fix that one line of code that's broken. If you see something else, if they're using an anti-pattern or like something that really shouldn't be in the project, or if you can improve the regular expression or any of those things, you're not only helping one person, you're helping everybody who reads that page. And there are a lot of copy pasters in the world. So every time you help that little bit, you're improving what gets copy pasted around the world. So it's worth taking the time. Fix that one as you see it. Only let the good stuff into Joomla Stack Exchange, and more good stuff will permeate. This stuff will make its way into the extensions that you're blindly using, because those developers are going to be using Joomla Stack Exchange. If there are multiple answers on a question, read the other ones. And if you're advising something that's unique to the page, well, researchers are going to ask themselves, oh, which one of these do I use? Yes, I can trust the green tick and where the upvotes are, but maybe you came late. Maybe this is an answer from 2014. It's got 30 upvotes, and you're coming on the scene with 0. People go, oh, it only has 0 upvotes. Well, you need to perhaps clarify why this is the new modern standard. Why should this one be used over that old one? And what are the pros and cons? Clarify that. Researchers will be appreciative of that. And it's okay sometimes. Sometimes it's right to just edit an existing answer to say, yes, use this answer, but just for your information, this is a caveat. It might fail when it does this. Or if you've got quite a lot to say, it's possible that you might give the exact same answer or technique to use as another answer, but you have something new and valuable to say. And so the links there is a great example of a page that I interacted on personally, but that I'm proud of in the Joomla Stack Exchange community, because someone asked a very clear question. Shaki gave an answer in 20 minutes. He was there. It was a single line of code, fixed this, and it resolved the problem. Definitely, the asker accepted it, loved it, whatever. But I didn't get there until like an hour later or something like that, and I was able to provide a very generous and comprehensive answer, which it backs up Shaki's answer. It explains how to debug, how to gain diagnostics, what actually went wrong, a link to where you can get more information about what went wrong and why it went wrong, why it was a tricky question to solve. And as simple as the question was, and as tiny and as clear as it wasn't actually a stupid question. There are no stupid questions if you're being clear about your knowledge, because people are coming into Joomla at all different walks of life. You don't know what people know coming in. So everyone should be confident in asking questions, even if they know it's a simple question. Just be honest. Be honest about what you know and what you don't know. Yeah, so there's a real buzz. The gamification on Stack Exchange sites is a good vibe. When you help somebody and you get that green tick, you feel like, okay, this is more than you could get on Joomla Forum, where my post count went up by 1. Great. No, this is you have helped one person, and you will be helping future people. This is why people become basically addicted to the Stack Exchange network, because it feels good. It gives you that good feeling. How am I tracking for time? Got a little bit left. So this is my soft exit. I've got some more slides if we need to pad time, where I'm happy to answer questions as well. So basically, I'm on a crusade, and I need help. There's no way that I can support the entire Joomla ecosphere myself, and with the handful of people that are volunteering now. The truth is, I need more help. I need more people. Joomla Stack Exchange is getting just over 1 question a day, and in terms of volume, that is a very poorly performing Stack Exchange site, considering I think Stack Overflow gets thousands of questions per day. I should have checked that stat. They might get more questions per day than Joomla Stack Exchange gets in a year. So really, really underperforming. And I know that there are developers in Joomla that could be asking, and they're not. I mean, if you're asking on Slack or on Glip, get your thoughts together. It's okay to start, to have some preliminary asking around, but if you are legitimately stuck with something and you don't have the answer, and that answer isn't already on the internet, fortify your thoughts, put it together, put it in a question, put it on Joomla Stack Exchange, and answer your own question, or get that person on Slack who answered your question to answer it on Joomla Stack Exchange. Put all the good stuff in fewer baskets, so that researchers don't have to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 12 support channels to find what they need. Let's get it all in one place. Get it in one place where the user interface is actually built for researchers. Additional links here. If you don't understand how the community works, and this is true of any of the Stack Exchange communities, if you don't know how it works, you've got questions, read the help pages. If you still don't understand after reading the help pages, you can post a question on the meta site for that community, and the moderators in the community there will answer your questions. Very pertinent to time now is that there is a new moderator election coming up starting in 2 days. You can self-nominate. So if you are someone with 300 or more rep points on Joomla Stack Exchange, and you'd like to become a moderator and help to deal with flagged questions and solving disputes and basically helping to fortify the community, you can throw your name into the hat. We are accepting up to, I think, 30. I think that's designed to, after the first wave, they'll call it down to 30 candidates, and then they call it down again and then again as much as needed. I will check the Q&A. But there's only a finite number of people that are over 300. So if you're one of those 300 and you've got some time to spare, it's not a heavy lifting task. I'm there every day, but you don't have to be every day checking in. It's just nice. It would be nice to have somebody in the Americas, if I'm being honest, to get the time zone split. So if something happens while I'm sleeping, you can get to it. There's not a lot of spam. They have a lot of automated systems in place to stop spam users and to handle bad content, and it's really just an exception handler type of role. Yeah, I've never been, oh geez, I've got 3 more hours, I just finished my work day and I've got 3 hours of Joomla Stack Exchange work to do. It has never been like that. So it's not a heavy ask. I think ideally I'd like to get people coming over who have been administrators in the Joomla forum. If I'm being very honest, I would like to have SMEs come and become moderators on Joomla Stack Exchange, because I am not a Joomla SME. I would not characterize myself as that. I would say I've got my head around PHP pretty well, but I don't know as much as I should know about Joomla, so I could use that help. And then after we have that week of nominations, there will be an election. If you have at least 150 rep, you'll be able to vote in the election and have your say about who gets in. If we don't get more than 2 candidates for the election, we'll take whatever candidates applied, they will become moderators. So if we have 1 or 2 candidates, they will both become automatic moderators without an election. And that's what happened with me, is they had an election, they needed a moderator, I put my hand up, there was nobody else, so I got in without even having an election. So yeah, as you can tell, there's just not enough activity. And I would, if you want more information about my thoughts on Joomla Stack Exchange, I gave a talk in JoomlaDay 2019 in Brisbane. That video is in Patrick Jackson's house. So if you want to see what I had to say a couple years ago, poke him. Now, let's have a look at the Q&A. I don't mind if someone wants to join the stage. Should those questions still go to Joomla.org? Which questions?
Hey, Mick, nice job. I think Dorothy is asking if you have a question. Yeah, jump in, Dorothy. Yeah. What do you got?
It put my questions in reverse order. So that
Okay.
sounds a little bit weird. I guess I should have realized that, but I was still trying to fit my question into the 200 character limit per thing, which is kind of dumb. But we've told Hoppin of many things that are kind of dumb. So that's okay. If they took all of our hints, it would be a better platform. But my question is this: the underlying assumption is that Joomla Stack Exchange is focused on the developer community. And we have, lots of situations where people who are not developers still run into some, tricky Joomla questions that, maybe it's a configuration thing, or it's got to do with the interaction of that in the hosting platform or something else, and the stuff isn't working the way it's supposed to, or they think it's supposed to. And so is this a good place for that? I mean, those normally go to, Joomla.org or other people within the jug, whoever that you can float those things by and so on. So what do you do with that kind of stuff,
Definitely. That is all on topic. Any sort of administration front end, back end, general user, anything that has to do with a Joomla application. It can even be tangentially related to Joomla. So this is a place where you want to ask any question, even if you are like a mobile app developer who's trying to integrate with the Joomla system or something like that, where you need to speak to somebody who's got subject matter expertise.
That
You
goes
post that in
beyond
Joomla.
what you know, so.
Definitely. And we more than anything, we want to make sure that we're inviting those general just users, just these people. I think one of the polls called them integrators. So anything, even if you're a user or a front end user, back end, even if you've never developed anything, you don't know CSS, you don't know JavaScript, you don't know anything about programming, but you had a developer make you a Joomla site, and then they said, here's your interface, here's how you log into the back end, or here's how you log into your specific customer interface and add articles. Like if you don't know how to add an article, that is a good question. So check the Joomla docs, check all
Well, I
those other
wasn't
places.
necessarily, thinking of things quite that basic, because we help people with that all the time. I'm thinking of things like, in the fellow that built this is somewhere else in the conference today, but where he's got like 20,000 community builder users and issues with people's profiles getting corrupted and odd stuff happening, but it's just like such a massive amount of activity on the site. And how do you deal with it? Different issues there that he had to resolve, and could use another pair of technical eyes to sort that kind of stuff out. It may or may not be a developer question. It's a site question, so.
That will not be closed. That is completely relevant, completely on topic. That is exactly what we want to invite. And you're actually touching on an important thing here. We've actually been discussing in the last probably year and a half about the concept of getting people who develop extensions, and they're thinking, oh, I should make a product Q&A on my website to help people with common problems that they have using my extension. And they're saying, would it be possible for me to offload all of my Q&A into Joomla Stack Exchange? Well, the answer is yes, you can. It is because it's existing within the Joomla sphere of knowledge. And so long as the questions that are posted are within the topic realm and they are clear and they meet the quality guidelines, it would be a great idea to have Q&A funneling through Joomla Stack Exchange. And what's that do for the extension developer? They can actually sleep at night knowing that it's possible someone who doesn't work for them can solve a question and solve a problem for their business.
Well, so many of these things that are really hard to deal with are, as I mentioned, community builder, where you're doing, what do they call those special actions and stuff that you can build and whatnot, and plugins for it, and RS forms, crazy things, or whatever it may be. But many times it's specific to an extension, and it's beyond what that extension developer has put on their site. And so you've either got to get somebody who's the developer for that extension and get their attention in amongst everything else they're doing, or find other people that have really pushed it to its limits and are doing something, creative with it.
Yeah. And this can also be, so imagine you're someone an aspiring extension developer. You're thinking, oh, I've made something really cool. I'd kind of like to put it on the JED, but what happens when it goes wild and then people start using it? Then I've got to provide support for my extension. What if I don't have the wherewithal to support all of the questions that come? Well, you can actually lean on Joomla Stack Exchange for that as well. You say, if you have any questions, I'll be checking for questions tagged with my extension name. I'll go to Joomla Stack Exchange and support your questions there, but also it's supported by the community as well.
Yeah. Well, I'll jump off, but Roland wants to ask a question here. So.
All right. Yeah. Jump on the stage if you like. I much prefer to talk instead of read. Thanks, Dorothy.
Sure.
Mick, I'm not sure if Roland is going to jump on, but you can see the question in the Q&A.
Let me just click it.
Or I can read it for you if you'd like.
It's loading. Is there any information where us extension developers can find info about how to post your document. So it's got to stay in the Q&A format. You won't be able to just go, blah, what is the documentation for?
Hey, Mick.
Is that the question? That's the question, isn't it? Oh, go ahead, Roland. Go ahead. Ask your question to me so I understand what you mean.
Yeah, so I just picked up what you said, that extension developers can put their Q&A on the stackexchange.com site. I was just wondering what the realm is, because I develop an extension. Of course, I have my own documentation section on my own website. But yeah, you talked about offloading that kind of information to Stack Exchange. I was just wondering to what extent do I just move everything over and say go there?
One at a time. I'd say systematically pick your best questions because again, this is an art form, getting the questions, the quality of the question, the quality of the answer right. So
it's the biggest challenge I have.
It is a challenge, and it probably takes some getting used to. If you're not already, are you using Joomla Stack Exchange?
Sometimes, and just general Stack Exchange for other things that I use.
Okay, so once you're sort of comfortable with how things should look and feel generally, you can start one at a time, posting self-answered questions. So you'll write up your whole question, then there'll be a little tick box under your question. You want to answer your own question, you tick that, it'll open up another text box where you write your answer, and when you post, it will post blap blap. It'll do the question and the answer at the same time.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that, and for you as an extension developer to go this route by offloading your Q&A into that public space, it really serves you so well, because once people know that they can start asking you questions about your extension in the public space, in that Joomla Stack Exchange network, this ensures that the questions that you receive are always awesome. You don't have to worry about, oh geez, how do I respond to this person who isn't really asking a clear question, because we have quality standards. If it's not quite to the standards, we'll chime in for you and say, look, this isn't really a clear question. You need to do Roland a favor here and sharpen it up before he can actually answer it. Or it can be you that says that. Say, oh, I'm happy to help you with this question, but it's not quite right. So, yeah, definitely. I hope that you and the beautiful part is, if we get more extension developers to come into this space, we will have more eyeballs that are subject matter experts.
Yes.
We need more of you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the answer.
No worries.
Good question, Roland. Yeah, I just want to acknowledge that we're at time. But Mick, I wanted to just thank you for a great presentation. I appreciate the candor with which you spoke about all of the available platforms for support. Thought it was a really balanced representation of the pros and cons of different ways of getting questions answered. And it felt very much like a tutorial about the culture of Stack Exchange. I appreciated it as a Midwesterner. We're second only to the Canadians in politeness. Right? So I'm sorry if I've offended you in any way, and please and thank you in advance and all of that. So it was really good just to get a sense of the culture and how to frame questions in a way that are sensitive to the community. And of course, we experience that all the time in the Joomla community as we're working with different cultures, different expectations. So it was really great to have you as a guide to welcome us to the platform. And there is a nice balance. It's great to have that sense of the tools that we're used to using, sort of the inner circles of the community. But there's also a benefit to having things, it provides exposure to the rest of the world, to what's happening within Joomla, to be out on those platforms as well. So, and I think that's my last observation. You talked about there's no stupid questions, but more than anything, just the sense of joy that you talked about in helping other people. I think it's a great reflection of the overall Joomla values. You're actually sneaking in on my closing keynote later today, so thanks for warming up. But it's really evident that you've found that help yourself from other people in your own journey, and it's really cool to see you returning that back and going meta on the conversation, not just answering questions about Joomla on Stack Exchange, but helping people get on the platform so that they can ask questions appropriately and get them answered. So Thank you, everyone, for participating in today's session, for asking great questions. Mick, I'll give you the final word if there's anything you want to leave folks with as you probably go back to bed.
No, I'm up now. My family's out of the door, so I can be as loud, and I'm going to enjoy the conference, and I'll be watching your keynote. But if anybody has further questions, I'm not hard to find. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find on Skype. I will respond. I'm so passionate about this. One day I will be writing a book about all of this knowledge, because this is where Joomla needs to be going. This is the best there is, and I'm convinced of this. And the more people I can convince of that, the better it gets.
We will look forward to that book. I'm sure it'll be a great read. Thanks for your passion for the platform. Thanks for your presentation. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I look forward to catching you out.
You too. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, take care.